Welcome to the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass. I'm so excited for today's topic because we are unpacking the guided electric bike tour of Sydney.
Oh, yeah. This is a good one.
It really is. And, my favorite thing about doing this show, doing the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass, is that we always try to get ahead of your objections. Like, we anticipate all those little doubts you might have about booking an experience.
Right, the stuff you actually worry about before clicking book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we've lived this experience on the ground, just the two of us. So we're going to share every single detail with you. We want to tell you everything so well that it literally feels like you're living the experience while you're listening right now.
Yeah, that's the goal. And I mean, with this specific tour, it completely shatters the usual tourist dilemma.
Oh, totally. Which is basically what you either walk everywhere.
Right, which means you see, like, a tiny fraction of the city, and your feet are just absolutely screaming by noon.
Yeah, or you take a bus tour,
Right.
Where you're, physically separated from the culture by this thick sheet of glass.
Exactly. You end up watching the city go by like a television screen.
Which totally defeats the purpose of traveling all that way. I mean, I want you, listening right now, to just picture this alternative for a second.
Close your eyes and imagine it. Well, unless you're driving.
Right. Keep your eyes open if you're driving.
Yes.
But just imagine you're feeling the crisp Sydney breeze coming off the harbor. You've got this quiet, powerful hum of a motor beneath you, taking all the strain out of the incline.
The best part.
It really is. And you're looking straight up at the massive, soaring steel arches of the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
No tinted glass.
None at all. You are out in the open. You are just a part of the city's bloodstream.
It's amazing because it shifts you from, like, a passive observer to an active participant.
Yes.
And to understand why this specific ExcursionPass tour is so highly reviewed, we really have to look at how they engineered solutions to the two biggest friction points of urban group travel.
Okay, lay them out for us.
So first, they take Sydney's notoriously formidable topography, all those hills, and they essentially flatten it. And second, they deploy a communication technology that just eliminates the single worst part of traditional guided tours.
Okay, before we even touch the tech, I want to challenge that first point.
Go for it.
Because before anyone can enjoy the spectacular sights of a major metropolis, they have to, actually get on the bike.
Right, the terrifying part for some people.
Totally. When I first looked at this itinerary, my immediate thought was, biking in a bustling global metropolis sounds like an extreme sport.
It really does sound intimidating.
I mean, if someone hasn't ridden a bike since middle school, aren't they going to hold the group up? I just imagine the anxiety of, learning to drive a manual transmission car in rush hour traffic.
With everyone just honking at you.
Yes. Sweating through your shirt before you even start.
Well, that is definitely the most common psychological barrier to entry. The idea of navigating urban traffic on two wheels, it's scary.
Especially in Sydney.
Right, because Sydney is built on a coastal sandstone basin, which is exactly what gives it those steep, punishing inclines. But the operators of this tour, they've designed the onboarding process specifically to dismantle that exact anxiety.
Okay, how? Because I definitely felt it.
It starts before you even see a bike. You arrive at the meeting point in Surrey Hills, specifically at 10 Bruce Champlain. It's his garage tucked away just as the lane curves around.
Oh, yeah, I noticed that when we were there. It's intentionally off the main chaotic streets.
Exactly. You aren't starting on a major intersection with buses just flying by. It's a completely controlled environment.
Which creates this immediate psychological safety. You can just breathe.
Exactly, and that's where you meet the guides. Throughout the reviews we pulled, Jake and Mark are the primary guides mentioned, and their approach to safety is just highly systematic.
Yeah, they don't just hand you a helmet and point you toward the water.
No, not at all. Jake conducts this really meticulous pre-ride briefing, and it's tailored to Sydney's unique layout. He covers local road rhythms, pedestrian habits, and of course the fact that Australia drives on the left.
Which, oh my gosh, takes a second to rewire in your brain if you're visiting from the US or Europe.
It really does. You have to constantly remind yourself.
But the part that fascinated me most, honestly, was the mandatory test ride.
Oh, yeah. The test ride is crucial.
You don't just get the safety speech and then hit the road. They make sure everyone physically understands the mechanics of the e-bikes. And I really want to dive into those mechanics because I don't think people realize how an e-bike actually works.
A lot of people have misconceptions about it.
Right. There's always that initial, 5 seconds of panic when you get on. You
Yeah.
do that embarrassing wobble.
A slow motion wobble.
Yeah. And you wonder if you've literally forgotten how balance works. But then you push the pedal, And it's not like a motorcycle throttle.
Right, because the technology they use is pedal assist. It specifically relies on torque sensors.
Okay, bring that down. Torque sensors.
Yeah, so a lot of people assume an e-bike is basically just a heavy moped.
That's what I thought, honestly.
But it isn't. A torque sensor measures exactly how much physical force you are putting into the pedals. Then, an onboard computer calculates an exponential power match from the electric motor in like milliseconds.
So it basically feels like you suddenly have the leg strength of an Olympic track cyclist.
That is exactly how it feels.
The bike isn't dragging you along, it's just amplifying what you do. It's like having a superhero gently but firmly pushing you forward the second you start to struggle on a hill.
And that amplification is the great equalizer for this tour. It officially accommodates ages 12 to 80, covering completely varying heights and fitness levels.
Which totally addresses my earlier fear of being the anchor holding everyone back.
Exactly. And to prove that point, the sources highlight a review from a traveler named Lisa. She had actually undergone 2 knee replacements before taking this tour.
Wait, 2 knee replacements? Navigating the hills of Sydney on a bike after 2 knee surgeries sounds completely impossible on paper.
On a traditional bike, it absolutely would be. But because of that torque sensor technology we talked about, the motor just absorbs the strain of the incline.
That's incredible.
Lisa noted that Mark, the guide, took extra care of her because he knew she was the least confident rider, and she said she never once felt like she was slowing the group down.
Oh, I love that.
She felt completely cared for. Furthermore, Sydney's urban planning has shifted heavily toward bike infrastructure recently. The route primarily utilizes dedicated bike lanes and separated paths.
And those dedicated paths change everything.
Night and day difference.
The moment you realize you aren't fighting a taxi for space, all the tension just drops out of your
They
shoulders.
stop scanning for danger and start actually looking at the architecture.
Right, which perfectly brings us to the second major hurdle. Once you remove the physical exhaustion and the fear of traffic, a new problem emerges, which is cognitive load.
Yeah, the mental fatigue.
Exactly. Like, how do you actually learn the history of the city while you're actively moving through it?
Communication is totally the traditional bottleneck of any moving tour.
It is. Let's look at the fatal flaw of a standard guided bike tour. You really only have 2 options, and honestly, they are both terrible.
Let's hear them.
Option A, you ride dangerously close to the guide's back wheel, just straining to hear them shout historical facts over the sound of winds and city traffic.
Which is terrifying and loud.
Yeah. And then option B, the guide has to stop the group every 5 minutes. You lose all your momentum. You pull over to the side of the path, huddle up, listen to a 2-minute speech about a building, and then you have to get going all over again.
It is exhausting.
It's exactly like trying to watch an incredible movie while someone keeps hitting the pause button every time they want to point out a hidden detail. It completely ruins the flow.
It totally shatters the immersion. But this tour introduces what I consider the real genius of the entire operation, Bluetooth helmets. When you are getting fitted for your bike at that garage on Bouchamp Lane, you are given a helmet with integrated audio.
And I have to admit, when I first read about the Bluetooth helmets before we went, I was highly skeptical.
Really? Why?
I just imagined this chaotic, open mic family Zoom call playing inside my helmet while I'm trying to ride a bike.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I pictured 8 people heavy breathing into their mics and talking over each other.
Okay, yeah, that would be a complete nightmare. But that's not how the system functions at all. It utilizes a guided audio mesh network.
A mesh network, meaning what exactly?
Well, instead of relying on cellular signals, which can bounce around and drop out in dense urban environments with all those high-rise buildings, these helmets connect directly to each other.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, but crucially, it is moderated. The guide, Jake, has the primary microphone. So from the moment you put the helmet on, he basically becomes a personal narrator situated directly inside your head.
It is almost surreal at first.
It really is.
You're looking at a historic building, and this voice in your ear is telling you the story behind the architecture right in that exact moment. You don't have to stop pedaling. You don't have to strain to hear.
You achieve this state of travel flow where learning just happens passively.
The audio immersion overlays your reality so seamlessly.
And if we look at the psychology of travel, that state of flow is incredibly rare. Usually, learning about a destination requires active, exhausting effort.
Oh, yeah. Reading plaques, checking a guidebook on your phone.
Straining to hear a guide in a crowded plaza. But by piping the narrative directly into your ears while the e-bike handles the physical exertion, your brain is just freed up to simply absorb the environment.
And beyond the educational aspect, we have to talk about how this is a massive safety enhancement.
Oh, absolutely.
Because the guide can broadcast real-time navigational warnings to everyone simultaneously.
Exactly. Jay can just calmly say, we have some uneven pavement coming up on the left, or there's a sharp right turn after this next block.
Or keep an eye on those pedestrians stepping out ahead.
Right. All in real time.
Which means you never have that terrifying moment of panic where the front of the group suddenly turns and you almost miss it because you were, I don't know, distracted by a seagull stealing someone's chips.
Which happens in Sydney.
It does. But it keeps the group cohesive without forcing you to ride shoulder to shoulder in a tight little pack. You have the freedom to drift slightly, to look around, knowing you won't miss a direction.
It's what allows a 4 to 5 hour tour to actually maintain its momentum.
Yeah. So we've established how they engineered away the physical strain with the e-bikes and the communication barrier with the mesh network helmets. Let's actually talk about the application of this tech.
Let's get into the route.
Yeah. What are we seeing through our visors while Jake is narrating?
Well, the routing is fascinating because it doesn't just drop you right into the heavy tourist traps immediately.
Right. When you leave Surrey Hills, you start by navigating the waterfront precincts and these quieter side streets. You really get to see how the locals actually use the city.
It eases you into the rhythm of Sydney, which I appreciate. You cruise through Paramount, taking in the neighborhood architecture, and you just roll right into Pirama Park.
And the transition from the urban streets to the sparkling water right next to those smooth paths, it's just immediate.
It's beautiful. And then you ride across the Paramount Bridge.
I want to pause on the Paramount Bridge because rolling over it is such a specific, cool experience. It's not just a path over the water.
No, it's a massive piece of engineering history. It's actually one of the oldest electrically operated swing bridges in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, and as you ride over it, Jake is in your ear explaining how it opened way back in 1902. You get this fantastic elevated perspective of the water with the modern city skyline just opening up before you.
And it's contrasted against that historic timber decking beneath your tires. It sounds so cool.
It really is.
From there, the tour flows into Barangaroo Reserve. I think, honestly, this might be one of the most striking parts of the route.
It is stunning.
It's this amazingly landscaped park right on the harbor edge.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always a park, right?
Far from it, actually. It's built on a reclaimed industrial site that used to be this massive concrete container terminal.
That's wild to think about.
Yeah, and now it's this sprawling native garden featuring thousands of trees and shrubs, and it's built with these massive blocks of Sydney sandstone.
And the views of the water from Barangaroo are just spectacular. Rolling through it on the e-bike lets you take in the sheer scale of the sandstone landscaping without breaking a sweat on the inclines.
Because there are definitely inclines there.
Oh, for sure. But then you hit the absolute peak of the itinerary, the moment that honestly completely justifies the entire cost of the tour.
You're talking about the bridge.
Yes, you are riding your bike over the iconic Sydney Harbour Bridge.
It is remarkably difficult to comprehend the sheer scale of that structure until you are physically on it.
It really is. Because when you cross it in a taxi or a bus, it's just, a road with some steel at the window. Right. But on the e-bike, you are suspended in the air. You feel the deep rumble of the city trains crossing alongside you, vibrating right through the bike frame.
The sensory experience is incredible.
The wind is hitting your face. Millions of rivets and towering steel beams are just rushing past you. And you look out to see the entire harbor spread out below.
And again, because you aren't gasping for breath trying to pedal up that steep bridge incline, you have the actual physical bandwidth to enjoy the majesty of it.
It's unforgettable. And as you come off the bridge, gravity basically does the work, and you glide right into the heart of the city's most famous precinct.
Circular Quay and the Sydney Opera House.
And I have to admit, this is where the safety briefing and those Bluetooth helmets really pay off.
Why is that?
Because when you are riding right past the Opera House, seeing those massive white sails against the bright blue sky, it is incredibly distracting.
It is visually overwhelming.
I found myself literally staring up at the ceramic tiles on the roof, and I had to actively remind myself to look forward and steer so I didn't just slowly veer off the path and into the harbor.
That would be a bad way to end the tour.
A very wet ending, yeah.
But the visual impact of that architecture up close is immense, and having Jake in your ear the whole time means He's providing all the context.
Right, the history.
Yeah, perhaps the troubled history of its construction or the architectural inspiration, and you're just effortlessly rolling past it. You don't have to stop and read a plaque.
Which keeps the flow going.
Finally, the route winds down by bringing you around Darling Harbor, completely finishing this massive, sweeping loop of the city's waterfront before heading back.
Which brings up a very practical question that I think we need to cover.
Okay, shoot.
When I was mapping out this itinerary originally, I looked at the sheer distance covered. Paramount, Barangaroo, the Harbour Bridge, the Opera House, Darling Harbor. That is a massive geographical footprint.
It covers a lot of ground.
And the tour runs for 4 to 5 hours. My immediate thought was, that sounds like a marathon, no matter how much the electric motor is helping.
It sounds like a lot of saddle time.
Exactly. Do you ever get to stop, get off the saddle, and just soak it in? My brain was screaming that I would need serious calories halfway through a 5-hour bike ride.
It's a completely valid logistical concern. Pacing is critical for any experience pushing past the 3-hour mark.
Yeah, people get hangry.
They do, and this is where the group dynamics and the itinerary design play a huge role. First, this is a highly personalized small group experience. The group size is strictly capped at a maximum of 8 people.
Which is great. It completely prevents that awful feeling of being part of a 30-person herd of cattle blocking the sidewalks.
Precisely. Although it is worth noting a quick logistical detail we found in the sources. They can actually accommodate large, private group bookings of 4 to 8 people on dates that might initially appear unavailable on their calendar.
Well, that's a great loophole for families or friends traveling together.
It really is. But generally, that strict cap keeps the pacing relaxed. Jake can monitor everyone's energy levels easily. As for the gear, the bikes are set up for a long haul.
Right. They have accessories.
Yeah. They feature mounts for a water bottle and a mobile phone, so your essentials are always accessible.
But the food aspect, for me, is what totally saves the pacing. While a meal isn't technically included in the base ticket price, the tour doesn't just march you for 5 hours straight.
Right. They build in a dedicated strategic social rest stop.
Yes. They pull over at a fantastic family-owned cafe for lunch.
It acts as, like, a perfect circuit breaker for the whole day.
It really does. You get off the bikes, you sit down with Jake and the rest of your small group, and the dynamic just shifts from a guided tour into a communal experience.
You're sharing stories with the other riders.
Exactly. You're resting your legs, and you're getting off-the-cuff local food recommendations from the guide. It breaks up the 4 to 5 hours perfectly, so it feels like a leisurely day out with a knowledgeable friend rather than, a grueling endurance test.
And that shift from a workout to a leisure activity is key to the tour's high ratings. When you examine the logistics and the cost, the value proposition is actually quite striking.
Let's talk about the price.
The cost sits around $81 or roughly 115 Australian dollars. Across the board, reviewers universally call this an outstanding value.
I mean, I would agree.
When you factor in the massive geographical footprint covered, the quality of the top-tier pedal assist e-bikes, the mesh network Bluetooth tech, and the 4 to 5 hours of fully guided, immersive time, it's an economic anomaly in a generally expensive city like Sydney.
Honestly, you'd pay close to that amount just to rent a high-end e-bike by yourself for half a day.
Easily.
And you wouldn't have the guide, the helmet, or the curated route to keep you safe. And looking at ExcursionPass, there's peace of mind built into the booking as well, which I always look for.
The flexibility is a major asset. They offer a full refund if you cancel up to 24 hours before the experience starts.
Which is so rare these days.
It is, and since this relies heavily on clear skies and safe paths, they are completely accommodating regarding weather.
Right. If it pours, you aren't forced to ride in the rain.
Exactly. If it rains, they offer either a different date to ride or a full refund, just removing the risk of booking in advance.
It takes all the stress out of planning. You can just find it on ExcursionPass, book it, and know you're totally covered.
It truly is a masterclass in how to engineer a modern city tour.
It really is.
Every historical friction point of travel, the physical exhaustion, the communication breakdown, the fear of urban traffic, the rigid stop-and-go scheduling, it has all been thoughtfully removed through technology and route design.
It really makes you rethink how you explore the world.
Definitely.
As we wrap up this episode of the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass, it leaves me with this one thought to just chew on. Think about how completely your choice of transportation dictates your psychological relationship with a new city.
It is quite literally the lens through which you process the environment.
Exactly. When you were crammed in an underground subway, A city feels like a stressful, disconnected maze of tunnels.
You're just trying to get from point A to point B.
Right. And when you're on a double-decker bus, it feels like a museum exhibit you aren't really allowed to touch. But when you get on these e-bikes, when the torque sensors remove the physical strain of those hills, and the Bluetooth mesh network erases the communication barriers, something incredible happens.
It changes your whole perspective.
It does. A massive, intimidating, sprawling global city like Sydney suddenly shrinks down. It transforms into an accessible, friendly, vibrant neighborhood that you are actively a part of.
That is so true.
But it also makes me wonder about the future, you know? If this combination of pedal assist and audio mesh technology scales, how will city planners design our urban spaces in the next 10 years?
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
Like, as tourists realize they can experience the city in this state of flow without the physical penalty, will those giant, polluting double-decker tourist buses become completely obsolete?
It's a fascinating question. If we can achieve scale with low-impact, highly immersive tech, the post-bus tourist city might look radically different.
Yeah.
We'd be prioritizing micromobility and quiet audio networks over heavy vehicle traffic.
It is definitely something to watch out for.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this journey today. We hope this deep dive gave you a real taste of what it's like to glide over the Harbour Bridge with the wind in your face and a narrator in your ear.
It's an experience you really won't forget.
Be sure to check out this guided electric bike tour of Sydney on ExcursionPass for your next trip down under. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we will catch you on the next episode of the Travel Podcast by ExcursionPass.